need
what
a
could
yes or no
conceivably
here.
come next.
Time is short. I just need a yes or no.
I would consult with the president about what the policy should be
In
at the Defense
other
Department.
words, you're quite sure that every general who serves should not go directly into the defense industry for 10 years. But you're not willing to make that same pledge?
I'm not a general, Senator.
You'll be.
Welcome back. Today we're analyzing the explosive confirmation hearing showdown between Senator Elizabeth Warren and Donald Trump's pick to lead the military, Pete Hegseth. Warren isn't relying on leaks or rumors here. She brings a literal paper trail of Hegseth's own recent public statements to challenge his fitness to lead 250,000 active duty women. Let's roll the actual clip and dissect the strategy.
So if you're confirmed as Secretary of Defense, you will oversee our military, including about 250,000 women who currently serve on active duty in the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Space Forces, and the Marines. And I have serious concerns that your behavior toward women disqualifies you from serving in this role. Now, I've been trying to get answers from you for quite some time on this. You haven't wanted to meet or to answer any of my questions, so we'll just have to do it here and dive in. I want to pick up on some of the questions asked by Senators Shaheen and Gillibrand and Hirono, and I just want to make sure we have a list of some of the facts that I think are undisputed. I'm not going to talk about anonymous sources. I'm just going to quote you directly. We've got the video. We've got it in print. So going back to January 2013, you told a Fox News interviewer that women in the military simply couldn't measure up to men in the military, saying that allowing women to serve in combat roles would force the military to lower the bar. You picked up on that same theme in 2015, making remarks on Fox News, referring to women in combat as, quote, it would erode standards. June 2024, you said on Ben Shapiro's podcast, quote, women shouldn't be in combat at all. And then, of course, we've talked about it in 2024. You published a book, and you say on page 26 of your book, we need moms, but not in the military, especially in combat units. Page 48 of your book, you claim that women should not be in combat roles because men are distracted by women. And then 10 weeks ago, you appeared on the Sean Ryan show and said, I'm straight up just saying we should not have women in combat roles. Now, I presume you recall making all these statements?
Look at how Warren builds the box. She defines the massive stakes, 250,000 servicewomen, and immediately drops a chronological timeline of Hegseth's exact media quotes from 2013 up to late 2024 stating straight up that women shouldn't be in combat roles. By eliminating anonymous sources, she blocks his ability to claim it's a media smear. He has to answer for his own literal voice.
Senator, I'm not familiar with the article you're pointing to in 2013, but it underscores my argument completely because in that 2013 argument, I was talking about standards.
No,
standards are what it's always been about,
let's not
Senator.
have this same fight again.
Always been about Senate
I've quoted
standards.
you directly. We've got the video. We're happy to show it. But I want to be clear here. For 12 years, you were quite open about your views, and your views were consistently the same. Women are inferior soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, and guardians. And in case anyone missed the point, and these are your words from 10 weeks ago, women absolutely straight up should not be permitted to serve in combat. And I notice on each of these quotes, those are said without qualification. It's not by how much you can lift or how fast you can run. They don't belong in combat, period, or your words, straight up. And then on November 9th, 2024, just 32 days after your last public comment saying that women absolutely should not be in combat, you declared that, quote, some of our greatest warriors are women, and you support having them serve in combat. Now, that is a very, very big about face in a very, very short period of time. So help me understand, Mr. Hegseth, what extraordinary event happened in that 32-day period that made you change the core values you had expressed for the preceding 12 years?
Senator, again, I very much appreciate you bringing up my comments from 2013 because for me, this issue has always been about standards. And unfortunately, because of some of the people that have been in political power for the last 4 years, priorities other than standards, lethality, and meritocracy have driven decision-making.
I'm quoting you from the podcast. Women shouldn't be in combat at all. Where is the reference to standards? That they should be there if they can carry, if they can run? I don't see that at all, Mr. Hegseth. What I see is that there's a 32-day period in which you suddenly have another description about your views of women in the military. And I just want to know, what changed in the 32 days that the song you sang is not the song you come in here today to sing?
Senator, the concerns I have and the concerns that many have had, especially in ground combat units, is that in pursuit of certain percentages or quotas, standards have been changed. And that makes the combat more difficult for everybody involved.
Let me make a suggestion about what happened in that 32 days. You got a nomination from President Trump. Now, I've heard of deathbed conversions, but this is the first time I've heard of a nomination conversion. And I hope you understand that many women serving in the military right now might think that if you can convert so rapidly your long-held and aggressively pursued views in just 32 days, that 32 days after you get confirmed, maybe you'll just reverse those views and go back to the old guy who said straight up, women do not belong in combat.
And there it is, the viral soundbite of the entire hearing. Nomination conversion. Hegseth tries to pivot his defense to the abstract idea of military standards and quotas. But Warren completely shuts that escape route down. She points out that just 32 days before flipping his stance to praise women warriors, his podcast statements had zero qualifiers. The immediate takeaway here is how brutally difficult it is for media figures to transition absolute, unconstrained commentary into a strict legalistic Senate setting.
Now, Mr. Hegseth, you have written that after they retire, generals should be banned from working for the defense industry for 10 years. You and I agree on the corrosive effects of the revolving door between the Pentagon and defense contractors. It's something I would have liked to talk with you about if you'd come and been willing to visit with me. But the question I have for you on this is, will you put your money where your mouth is and agree that when you leave this job, you will not work for the defense industry for 10 years?
Senator, it's not even a question I've thought about because it's not one
think about it right now.
It's not one, my motivation for this job
I understand
has never
that. I
been
just
about
need
what
a
could
yes or no
conceivably
here.
come next.
Time is short. I just need a yes or no.
I would consult with the president about what the policy should be
In
at the Defense
other
Department.
words, you're quite sure that every general who serves should not go directly into the defense industry for 10 years. But you're not willing to make that same pledge?
I'm not a general, Senator.
You'll be the one, let us just be clear, in charge of the generals. So you're saying sauce for the goose, but certainly not sauce for the gander?
I would want to see what the policy of the president
I'll
is.
bet you would.
Warren locks the secondary trap. Hegseth built his populist brand writing that retired generals should be banned from defense industry lobbying for 10 years. But when Warren asks him to apply that exact same rule to himself as secretary, he completely freezes and ducks behind, consulting the president. Warren finishes him off with sauce for the goose, but not for the gander, exposing a glaring double standard on live television. Now let's transition into a comprehensive critical review of what we just witnessed, because this 7-minute exchange is far more than just viral political theater. It is a direct masterclass in the collision between institutionalist politics and the modern populist movement. If you approach this video from a progressive or traditional policy perspective, Elizabeth Warren executed a fundamentally flawless cross-examination. She didn't rely on rumors or anonymous sources. Instead, she systematically built an ironclad rhetorical box using Hegseth's own media footprint. By laying out his exact quotes from his 2024 book, The War on Warriors, and his podcast appearances from just weeks prior, she completely neutralized his ability to claim he was the victim of a coordinated media smear campaign. When a nominee states unequivocally that women straight up should not be in combat roles, Dropping that qualifier completely makes a sudden pivot just 32 days later incredibly difficult to defend under oath. Her invention of the term nomination conversion was a brilliant semantic strike. It exposed the transactional nature of Washington politics, framing his sudden change of heart as an act of pure political convenience to secure a cabinet post. Furthermore, Warren's pivot to the defense industry lobbying rules exposed a deep ideological contradiction within the populist platform. Hegseth had spent years building a brand attacking the military-industrial complex, advocating for a strict 10-year ban on retired generals joining corporate boards. Yet, when asked to bind his own civilian leadership to that exact same standard, his defense completely stalled. Pushing a strict anti-corruption rule for your subordinates while refusing to accept it for yourself as the ultimate decision-maker is the exact definition of a double standard. In that room, Warren won the debate by letting Hegseth's own words do the damage. But here is where a critical objective review requires us to look past the immediate theater of the committee room and analyze the changing political gravity of the country. Mainstream commentators in January 2025 watched this exact clip and confidently predicted that Hegseth's nomination was completely dead. They argued his paper trail was too volatile and his institutional support was too thin to survive. They were completely wrong. They drastically miscalculated how much the traditional confirmation playbook has changed. Despite this brutal public grilling, and despite facing unanimous opposition from Democrats alongside 3 historic no votes from establishment Senate Republicans, including Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, and outgoing leader Mitch McConnell, the political calculation held. On January 24, 2025, just 10 days after this hearing, the United States Senate convened and confirmed Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense in a historic 51-50 vote, with Vice President J.D. Vance arriving on the Senate floor to cast the tie-breaking vote. It was only the second time in American history that a cabinet member's confirmation required a vice presidential tiebreaker. And look at what has transpired since that vote. Far from backing down or moderating his stances to appease his critics in the Pentagon, Secretary Hegseth treated his razor-thin confirmation as an absolute mandate for radical structural transformation. On September 5, 2025, Hegseth executed a massive bureaucratic shockwave by officially shifting the Pentagon away from its post-World War II administrative identity and restoring its historical designation, the Department of War, assuming the operational title of Secretary of War. This wasn't just a symbolic name change, it was an explicit philosophical pivot back to raw kinetic lethality, aimed at purging civilian administrative layers. As we look at the strategic realities today in 2026, the ideological battle lines drawn by Elizabeth Warren in that hearing room have transformed into official global policy. Hegseth has completely overhauled the transatlantic alliance under what he terms NATO 3.0, shifting U.S. forces away from frontline European defense to focus aggressively on the Indo-Pacific and active kinetic operations against Iran. He scolds international allies who fall short of defense spending targets, telling them the U.S. will no longer underwrite their security while they focus on social initiatives. He is currently pushing a massive, historic $1.5 trillion budget explicitly optimized for advanced drone integration, artificial intelligence command networks, and high-speed missile manufacturing. So while Elizabeth Warren undeniably won the tactical rhetorical battle in this 7-minute clip, Pete Hegseth ultimately won the institutional war. He proved that in the modern political ecosystem, a controversial media paper trail isn't a vulnerability that sinks you, it's a roadmap for the base that propels you into power. But the massive questions raised in this room haven't disappeared, they have simply become real-world pressure tests. By prioritizing raw combat capability and a warrior ethos over diversity and institutional norms, has Hegseth built a leaner, more lethal military capable of deterring 21st-century adversaries? Or has he permanently damaged the internal cohesion, the recruitment of women, and the global alliances that have prevented a major world war for the last 80 years? When we watch this footage today, we aren't just looking at political theater. We are looking at the exact structural fault line where the old rules of American governance died, and a volatile hypernationalist future was born. I want to know what you think. Was Warren's cross-examination a necessary check on an inconsistent nominee, or did Hegseth's ultimate victory prove that the old political establishment playbook is completely broken? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Smash that like button, hit subscribe for more unfiltered real breakdowns, and I will see you in the next video.